This program is brought to you by PersonalLifeMedia.com. Living Dialogues is sponsored by Audible. Bestsellers in philosophy, spirituality, and self-help. Download your free audiobook from over 40,000 titles. Sign up for your risk-free trial at audiblepodcast.com/living. Join today. Cancel anytime in the first 2 weeks and keep your free book as your gift. You're going to love being an Audible listener.
I'm Dr. Brian Weiss, author of Many Lives, Many Masters and Same Soul, Many Bodies. And I'd just like to say that Living Dialogues with Duncan Campbell is one of my favorite shows. Duncan has such a rich and textured experience that he shares with his listeners. And being a guest on the show is so wonderful to me because the integration of Duncan's experiences and my experiences is so perfectly blended. It's not one-sided as so many shows are. This gives me an opportunity to think. The questions are provocative, and to listen and learn from Duncan's experiences too. This is really part of the show that makes it special. The nature of the show, the essence of the show is shared communication, it's shared experience, shared wisdom, and then almost the dialectic, the one stimulating the other, bringing it to a higher level, a higher octave than could be just from me hearing myself talk. So I want to express my appreciation to you, Duncan, for having me on the show and for the wonderful format that you present. Everybody that listens to your show are very privileged.
From time immemorial, beginning with indigenous councils and ancient wisdom traditions, through the work of Western visionaries such as Plato, Galileo, and quantum physicist David Bohm, mutually participatory dialogue has been seen as the key to evolving and transforming consciousness, evoking a flow of meaning, a dia flow of logos, meaning, beyond what any one individual can bring through alone. So join us now, as together with you, the active deep listener, we evoke and engage in living dialogues. Welcome to Living Dialogues. I'm your host, Duncan Campbell, and with me for this particular dialogue, I'm truly delighted to have as my guest Brian Weiss, M.D., author of many books, most recently, Same Soul, Many Bodies. Discover the healing power of future lives through progression therapy. Brian graduated magna cum laude from Columbia University and received his medical degree from the Yale University School of Medicine. He served his internship at New York University's Bellevue Medical Center and went on to become chief resident, Department of Psychiatry, at the Yale University School of Medicine. He is now chairman emeritus of Psychiatry at the Mount Sinai Medical Center in Miami. Brian Weiss is the author, as mentioned, of a number of best-selling books, including Many Lives, Many Masters, and Through Time into Healing. He leads seminars, workshops, and professional training programs throughout the world. He is married and lives in Miami, Florida. So, Brian, it's really a true delight to have you back on this program, Living Dialogues.
Thank you very much, Duncan. It's great to be back with you.
In the past, we visited the extraordinary story that you tell in Many Lives, Many Masters of how you first came into this awareness that became your life work, that you were, we might say, a very accomplished psychiatrist in a conventional modality, and had written a number of monographs, maybe 30 or 40 monographs, within the parameters of, again, we might say, the psychiatry as is known in the mainstream. And then one day you were regressing one of your patients, Catherine, and she just kept going past zero and into the past, into past lives. And I think maybe just to give people a sense of it that may be hearing about you for the first time, I'd like you to tell, if you wouldn't mind, the story of your son and how moving that was, and how it really changed your life, that she began speaking about your first son who died shortly after childbirth, and maybe you could just take it from there.
Absolutely, because that was the epiphany for me. That was the moment that my whole world changed. Before that, a few weeks before that, she had started to remember past lifetimes. I did not believe in this. They don't teach this at Yale Medical School, a very conservative place.
Even today?
Even today, they do not. I've spoken back at Yale, but in the theology school, not in the medical school.
Very interesting, yeah.
So when she started to remember past lives, and this came about somewhat, I'll say coincidentally, even though there may not be coincidences, she had been suffering from panic attacks, phobias, fears. A Catholic woman, Catherine at that time was in her late 20s, and I had treated her for more than a year with psychotherapy because she wouldn't take any medication because of a fear of choking or gagging. Finally, she let me use hypnosis. She had visited Chicago and the King Tut exhibit that was touring the country and began to correct the museum guide about everyday Egyptian artifacts. And she was correct, but she didn't know where this information came from. So what I was telling her, that perhaps she had repressed or forgotten childhood memories, might be accurate. We used hypnosis, went back, found traumas in her childhood, but no real change in her clinical status. So the next week when she was in, I told her to go back to the time where her symptoms first began. And that's when she started remembering past lives, because she went back about 4,000 years into an ancient Near Eastern lifetime. I'll just digress a little bit. Because I did not let Simon & Schuster, the editor, change any of the audio tapes I was making of the sessions, hoping that people would get in touch with me and fill in the missing pieces. This is what happened. For example, in that first lifetime, and she drowned in a flood or tidal wave, 80-foot or 60-foot waves knocking over trees and buildings in her village, which was somewhere in the eastern Mediterranean. I couldn't fathom how 80-foot waves could exist in the eastern Mediterranean. This is like tsunami stuff. This is not in the Mediterranean. And by the way, her lifelong fear of gagging disappeared after that memory. And so...
Just the memory, so she must have drowned.
She drowned, and the gagging disappeared. This is how past life therapy has its therapeutic effects. A geologist wrote me that was the story of the eruption of the great volcano on Thera, which is now known as Santorini. The time was correct. It caused 80-foot waves all the way to Greece and Asia Minor and the northern coast of Egypt. So actually she was describing what's described in Exodus, day turning into night. There was so much ash. There was no summer that year on the earth. That was the eruption of the volcano in Thera.
Amazing. And I'll just interject here. Yes. One of the persons that's been on this program as well is Graham Hancock, whose work, Underworld, his book, verifies that the story of the Great Flood that appears in the Bible is a story that's told in many, many different traditions. And, in fact, he shows through the latest archaeological evidence and his own deep diving off the coastal plains of various places around the world that there is evidence to show that there was indeed a great flood in many of these places, and it is in the living memory through legends, but that our, quote, modern scientific mind sort of drew a line between our history and, quote, prehistory.